It's as strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure.
Hi guys, welcome back to Exmo Lex. As many of you probably know, this past weekend was the Mormon Church's semi-annual General Conference, and predictably, many hurtful things were said by church leaders. Perhaps most predictable was Dallin Oaks being homophobic at the pulpit. And in case you need a reminder, Dallin Oaks is the first counselor in the first presidency of the church, and he is first in line to be the next prophet if the current one kicks the bucket. Now, a few days before conference, I remember coming across a post either on Twitter or Instagram that was addressed to the Mormon and post-Mormon LGBTQ community, basically saying that no matter what is said during conference this weekend, you are valued, you are important, you are loved, you are worthy. And as sad as it is, the reason that needed to be said at all is because the church just can't seem to confine itself to simple messages like, Jesus said, love everyone, and instead has to say things like, God said that we have to reject gay people. Something that makes messages like this hurtful, particularly in a conference setting, is because conference is framed like this special time of year where everybody gets together and we're basically going to hear the message that God wants us to hear. Mormons view their prophet as God's mouthpiece, so whatever is said at conference is supposedly directly from God. So when something like this is said, like at the most recent conference, that can be really hurtful. Now, since I'm pretty active in the Mormon and post-Mormon communities online, I saw a lot of opinions being shared about this. Of course, for ex-Mormons, progressive Mormons, and more nuanced Mormons, a lot of them found some of the messages really harmful. I saw a lot of people sharing their hurt and frustration, and I even saw somebody sharing that following Oakes' remarks, they were uninvited to their family's Easter celebration. I also saw some people share on Twitter or on Reddit that this conference was their last straw and they are done with the church. Seeing people share that made me really curious how often this happens. With my faith crisis and faith journey, that personally wasn't the case, but now that I've left the church and I can look at it from the outside, a lot of the conference talks to me are way more damning than anything in the CES letter. I asked about it on Twitter, and there were actually a lot of people sharing that they had their shelf break during conference, either this time around or in one of the previous years. I feel like this could be true even in decades past, because the church has shared some really harmful messages over the pulpit during General Conference. Sometimes it's even so bad that the church will edit the talks to make them sound less awful before they put them on their website. I'll give you a few examples. All of these things were shared during conference. At one meeting, a father and mother and their 16-year-old daughter were present, the little member girl, 16, sitting between the dark father and mother, and it was evident she was several shades lighter than her parents, on the same reservation in the same hogan, subject to the same sun and wind and weather. There was the doctor in a Utah city who for 2 years had had an Indian boy in his home who stated that he was some shades lighter than the younger brother just coming into the program from the reservation. These young members of the church are changing to whiteness and delightsomeness. One white elder jokingly said that he and his companion were donating blood regularly to the hospital in the hope that the process might be accelerated. It is plainly evident from these statistics that young women are exceeding young men in pursuing educational programs. And so I say to you young men, rise up and discipline yourselves and take advantage of educational opportunities. Do you wish to marry a girl whose education has been far superior to your own? If children have a happy family experience, they will not want to be homosexuals, which I'm sure is an acquired addiction, just as drugs, alcohol, and pornography are. The promoters of homosexuality say that they are born that way, but I do not believe this is true. There are no female spirits trapped in male bodies and vice versa. He who made them male and female. A lot of ick here. And these are all supposedly messages that God needed the world to hear at that time. It's interesting that the church also teaches that these men will never lead the church astray, when clearly they must disagree with some of it if they have to edit it out if it's too controversial. When I was growing up in the church, I was always taught that a prophet would never lead the church astray. For example, the Lord will never permit me or any other man who stands as president of this church to lead you astray. It is not in the program. It is not in the mind of God. If I were to attempt that, the Lord would remove me out of my place, and so he will any other man who attempts to lead the children of men astray from the oracles of God and their duty. Or this. Follow the leadership of the church. God will not let his work be led astray. So, which is it? Has the church been led astray? Or does the church actually endorse these things, but they were so controversial that the church had to hide it? All of this made me really curious about the community this channel has fostered. So for all of you who are former members of the church, please let us know in the comments if a general conference talk pushed you away from the church. I really want to get a conversation started about this, so if you can remember exactly which talk it was, or even just who gave it, please write it in the comments. And was it actually, during General Conference weekend, or was it when you were reading the talk on your own time later? If there are enough responses about this, I may even do a video where I share the comments. There are definitely a lot of Mormons who leave the church because they come across so-called anti-Mormon literature like the CES letter. That was how I initially left the church too. Mormons love to blame the adversary for people losing their faith. And they also demonize ex-Mormons because that's pretty easy to do when your religion encourages an us versus them mentality. But the more time goes on and the more people I meet and the more things the church does, the more I think that the church itself is the one causing people to question more than anything else. So if you just happen to be in that camp, please leave a comment and let us know about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys are awesome. Extra special thank you to Amy Welling, Brett Fairborn, Craig Call, Doug Davis, Mormonland, The Guiltiest Place on Earth, Jason Wilkins, Noble Monster Comics, Tans, and the Exmo Candle Company for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you guys would like to support the channel, you can find links to do so in the description below, as well as links to all my other social media if you want to see more content. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Never revealing no secrets you're keeping. These promises strong as a spell. I'll never tell. Yeah, I like you, that's for sure.